Hello, and welcome to the Best Practices webinar, WSO for Administrators. Today, we'll review the WSO assessment process and your role in monitoring and supporting teachers throughout each stage of a WSO rating period. Let's begin by looking at the purposes for using WSO to assess pre-K children. WSO is designed to help teachers document and evaluate students' skills, knowledge, and behavior, make instructional decisions, and communicate information with families. When we think of assessment, it really takes place in a cycle. The cycle of assessment begins with asking questions, then collecting evidence, interpreting that evidence, and finally taking action. Let's look at the assessment cycle in a bit more detail. Teachers naturally wonder about their children and ask questions. For example, what do my students know about number and quantity? Asking questions helps teachers clarify their thinking and become more focused. As teachers observe children, the details they learn help them put together a more complete picture of the child. As they see gaps in what they know, their questions become more focused and specific. The second step of the assessment cycle is collect evidence. There are many ways that teachers collect evidence, and for WSO, teachers must collect observational notes, photos, work samples, and matrices. They may choose to collect audio and video clips as well. For the teacher who wonders what her children know about number and quantity, she may choose to design a matrix to use during her teacher-led small group to assess students' skills. The third step of the assessment cycle is interpret evidence. Teachers reflect on the evidence they have collected and determine what it means about a child's performance. This helps teachers plan instruction and communicate with families. After checking off students on the matrix she created, our teacher will reflect on the evidence and may notice that Shaquan can count to 10 with some assistance and that Emmeline can count to 5 independently. Finally, teachers use what they have learned to guide their decisions as they interact with students, plan lessons, and summarize information for families. This is the take action step of the assessment cycle. When planning next week's small groups, our teacher might plan separate small group activities for Shaquan and Emmeline to meet their individual needs. Once teachers go through this process, the cycle begins again with asking questions. Teachers and administrators new to the work sampling system often wonder about all the parts of the process or just exactly what they need to do. The first part of work sampling is to make a plan for assessing children. It's imperative that teachers are intentional about collecting evidence. The Planning for Assessment template will help teachers organize their plan on how to seek answers to their questions. We will look at it in more detail soon. The next part of WSO is collecting evidence such as notes and work samples and entering it online. Teachers will link the evidence to the 69 assessment indicators. Next, teachers complete the developmental checklist. They review the evidence they have entered and rate the students on each indicator as not yet, in process, or proficient. The developmental checklists should be updated weekly as teachers enter new evidence. Near the end of a rating period, teachers will use the developmental checklist ratings to help them write the narrative summary report, which is shared with parents at the family conferences held at the end of each rating period. Let's take a look at the timeline for assessment. There are 2 rating periods, and teachers assess children on all 69 indicators in Period 1 and again in Period 2. Teachers provide instruction on the GELDS indicators throughout the year, choosing the ones that are most appropriate for their children at just the right time. During the first rating period, which typically runs from the beginning of the year until December, teachers should collect evidence each week and use that evidence to make weekly ratings on the developmental checklist. Please note that children who are no longer in the classroom should be archived in the WSO system. Also, remember that before entering any new children in WSO, you should contact Pre-K Assessment to ensure that they are not already in the system. You do not want to create duplicate entries. 2 weeks prior to the end of the first rating period, teachers should flag the developmental checklist as final and write the narrative summary reports, which are shared with parents during family conferences. Teachers repeat the process again at the beginning of period 2. Nothing is different. You may be asking, what is the role of the assistant teacher? Good question. The role of the assistant teacher is to help with the collection of evidence for assessment. Everything else on the list requires the lead teacher's login information or is a task that should be done by the lead teacher. It's essential that the assistant teacher is engaged as a partner in collecting evidence. It is not a one-person job. Right from the start requires that teachers document their plan for collecting assessment evidence. There are 2 ways this can be accomplished. Teachers may include the plan in their lesson plans or use the Planning for Assessment template. We recommend that teachers use the Planning for Assessment template to organize the evidence they collect so that it does not overwhelm them and ensures that they collect everything they need. It's impossible for teachers to be solely responsible for collecting all evidence. The assistant should help, and that can be documented on the Planning for Assessment template too. Here's a completed example that shows 1 week's worth of assessment evidence. You'll notice that on Monday and Tuesday, the teacher wants to collect evidence related to children's knowledge of print concepts. The lead designs a matrix for the assistant teacher to use during DEAR time. This week, the lead teacher will take just a few photos. He has transformed the Dramatic Play Center into an airport and will spend about 10 minutes each day taking photos of the children at play. Some of the pictures will be used for assessment, and others may not be assessment worthy. The only notes the teacher will collect this week will come from the Science Center Wednesday and Thursday. Note that animal bones have been added to the Science Center, so during center time, the assistant teacher will position herself to make some observations and take notes of the children using tools, such as magnifying glasses, to observe the animal bones. Finally, the teacher has planned to collect writing samples during small group time throughout the week. He determined that these were needed by reviewing his class profile report. Let's move on to the IQ Guide for Assessment for Directors. We'll review each section and share ideas to help you monitor and support your teachers in the WSO process. Let's begin with pre-planning. In the pre-planning phase, directors should meet with teachers to review guidelines and other requirements. At this time as well, directors should make a plan for reviewing and providing feedback to teachers. This plan should be filed with your grant requirement checklist. Finally, you want to ensure that teachers have the necessary equipment needed to be successful with assessment. Teachers need their own computer with internet access. This allows teachers to have access at a time that is convenient to them rather than schedule a time to use a shared computer. All teachers should have a working camera to use for assessment. Additionally, you'll want to consider adopting a policy that allows teachers to use smartphones in the classroom. This is a great way for teachers to take pictures, record audio and video clips for assessment, or dictate notes, which will help them work more efficiently with WSO. You and your teachers should use Chrome or Firefox as your web browser when using WSO. Internet Explorer and WSO do not always work well together. When the use of smartphones is allowed, there are apps that teachers can use to record audio and video clips. We've highlighted the voice recording apps for both iOS and Android devices. There are many apps that may be of interest if you allow smartphones or have tablets in the classroom. The ones that we are about to share are free and available for iOS and Android. Fonto allows a user to add text to a photo. This is useful because teachers can write some of their notes on their photos before ever logging on to WSO, thus reducing the amount of time they will need to be online. Dragon Dictation can also be a useful app for teachers. It's an easy-to-use voice recognition app that allows you to instantly see the text that is dictated. This is helpful to teachers to record what children say or to dictate observational notes. If teachers log in to WSO on their tablet devices, they can simply cut and paste their notes into WSO. Teachers are required to collect evidence to link to performance indicators. There are 4 types of required evidence in the WSO system. They are observational notes, photos, work samples, and matrices. Teachers may also include audio and video clips, but these 2 types of evidence are optional. Let's take a look at each kind of evidence, beginning with notes. Observational notes should be written using positive, factual, rich, and detailed information. The more richly notes are written, the more assessment indicators teachers will be able to link to the notes. Looking at this picture of Ellie, you would probably say that Ellie sorted by shape. That would be correct. However, writing a more detailed note that includes a quote from Ellie would allow a teacher to find out more about what Ellie knows and can do. The note on the right shows us that Ellie can sort, count, identify shapes, speak clearly, show self-confidence, and more. Here's an example of using a fact versus opinion note. Saying that Olivia was frustrated does not really tell us what the teacher saw and heard. Notice, when a note is based on fact instead of opinion, we gain insight into what Olivia became frustrated about. And finally, we want notes that focus on what children can do. We can see that the pattern Jeremy created is certainly not an ABAB pattern, but by focusing on what Jeremy can do, we note that he created his version of a pattern, and this really helps us understand where he is developmentally. When teachers record observations, they should stick to the facts. Notes should clearly describe what the teacher saw and heard. Let's practice the process of observing and writing a note. In the following video clip, you'll see 3 children. Alex is the boy who created this butterfly drawing. In the middle of the group, you see Shanvi, and on the left is Skylar. Write down what you see and hear during the interaction.
This is actually going to be a beautiful caterpillar that is going to turn into a beautiful butterfly. Those are the thoughts, the wings are going to happen, only that's part of a caterpillar in the egg.
And
then
what is this here?
A caterpillar, and this is the head. All these other things, this is all the decorations on the eggs. Then them are going to pop out. And this right here, all this part, we have to erase it because it was by accident.
Okay, but I'm really excited. What is that?
Butterfly.
You wrote that word?
Yep, all by myself.
All by yourself? How did you figure that out?
Because I sound then I got this sound out that made the R, then the S, then the I, and wrote my name.
That is,
Because I know my name pretty well.
that is very amazing. What should you guys tell him about his...
L?
That's okay. What should you tell him about his picture?
I never.
Oh. Oh, so you told him what about the L? Wow. Okay, so I would say you worked really hard, and you told us a whole butterfly story here. And you were able to write the word butterfly and look at those decorations on there. And you know what else I noticed about your wings? What did he do about his wings that's really, truly amazing?
He put them the same on both sides.
He put them the same on both sides.
Only this one
do you
is different than this
A
one.
tiny bit. But what is that word called when it's the same on both sides? Anybody remember?
Symmetrical.
It's symmetrical. His butterfly's pretty symmetrical. And I also noticed you put these. What are these? Tell me about these.
These, sometimes these,
Are they the ears?
yeah.
Yeah, they do hear with them and they feel with them. And what else? What are they called?
These are antennas right here.
Those are antennas.
I forgot to put that on.
Stella, we both have dresses inside.
Do you love those dresses?
We're having two.
Yeah.
We have a dress under and over. Do you love the eggs?
I love the eggs. Where are you gonna put eyes?
Yep.
Hey, we both got one. And
You have a dress under the dress
Like,
that
no,
they
I
gave
think
us.
that one
Did you put it for
I have a dress under the dress they gave me.
and look, we're both wearing those crown things.
Ooh, what is that? Oh, we're having a flower? Well, explain to me what you just did.
A flower.
For why?
So I can suck it.
Suck what?
Up the flower.
That is truly a beautiful, amazing picture. Okay, did you guys decide if there's one you want to take home?
Here's a sample note. Notice the detail that is included. The teacher included quotes from the children as well as detail of what took place. The details included in this note allows a teacher to link to many indicators for all three children. For the note on the previous slide, there are 16 indicators that a teacher can link to the note. This demonstrates why it's important to write rich observational notes. Let's look briefly at when to collect photos and work samples. We know that teachers take a lot of photos. It's up to them to decide which of these are assessment worthy. Teachers only need photos when the behavior is too difficult to describe in a note. Look at the photo on the screen. This detail of the structure these boys constructed would be very difficult to put into a note. The teacher would include the photo to document what she saw and would include a quote to document what she heard. What about this photo? It's pretty obvious that Brandon used links to measure, so the teacher would not need to write that in her online note. Instead, she would include what Brandon said so that we have insight into what he was thinking. This gives us more relevant assessment information. Here are some other samples of photos that have been uploaded to the WSO system. Large group photos are often unnecessary. If a teacher wanted to assess anything from this photo, it could easily be put into a matrix. Here's another good example of an assessment-worthy photo. The detail of this bunny house would be difficult to describe in a note. So the teacher would upload the photo to document what she saw and include a note of what the child said about her creation. And here's another example of a photo that is not necessarily assessment-worthy. These three boys are playing a game of Candyland, and this information could easily be put into a note. This photo is another example of an assessment-worthy photo. Again, there is a lot of detail we see in the photo that would be hard to describe in a note. For example, the girls are counting, measuring, making patterns, and speaking. This photo is an example of the type photo not to include in WSO. This photo does not help to assess the indicator for identifying people's jobs and what is required to perform them. Also, teachers assess individual students' skills and abilities, not the whole class at once. Better ways to assess students' knowledge of what firefighters do would be to allow them to draw and write about their field trip. Or the teacher could transform dramatic play into a fire station and take notes while the children are playing there. When considering whether to include a photo or work sample in WSO, teachers should ask themselves whether the work is unique. The photo on the left does not show anything unique. Almost all pre-K children create patterns with snap cubes. The work sample on the right is unique. This child has extended his knowledge of patterns and created his own AABC pattern using Fruit Loops and a pipe cleaner. Work samples can provide teachers with much information about a child across multiple learning domains. Teachers should choose work samples intentionally to acquire information that they need to collect about a child. These are all the rectangles except that one is a circle. At first glance, it appears that Chance sorted by shape. But by allowing him to tell us about his work, we learn that he doesn't know the attributes of shapes. If this happens a lot, then he will likely need a not yet rating on the developmental checklist. Teachers must collect evidence to support all the ratings they make, not just proficient ratings. In fact, teachers likely need more evidence to support the rating of not yet than any other. The final type of evidence we will look at is the matrix. A matrix is a tool used to collect notes on multiple children at one time. Lead teachers design a matrix ahead of time to quickly collect data on easily observable, predictable behaviors. Teachers should identify one indicator to assess on a matrix, for example, this science indicator. Then, they design multiple activities related to that matrix that will allow them to quickly assess students' proficiency with the indicator. For example, teachers should incorporate the tools into the classroom and observe children using them. Teachers and administrators often wonder how much evidence should be collected. There is no set amount of evidence that teachers should collect. The amount varies with each child. There should be sufficient documentation so the teacher feels confident when making a rating on the developmental checklist. Let's look at the math. If teachers are given a set amount of evidence to collect, 3 pieces per child per indicator, for example, that means a total of 207 pieces of evidence would need to be collected for one child. Now, multiply that by 22 children in a classroom. That is a total of 4,554 required pieces of evidence. Take into account both reporting periods, and by the end of period 2, teachers would collect 9,108 pieces of evidence. That is why teachers are told to collect the evidence they need to feel confident in making ratings for children. As we move to the second part of the IQ guide, we want to look at how to screen a classroom. When screening classrooms, you want to examine the quality of the evidence. 2 pieces of high-quality evidence are likely better than 10 pieces of mediocre evidence. Also, check to see that teachers collect a variety of evidence. You should see notes, photos, work samples, and matrices. Review performance indicator links that teachers make for each piece of evidence. Are the links obvious and natural? As you screen classrooms online, please remember that evidence is not required for indicators in the personal and social development domain or physical development, health, and safety domain, unless the child has an IEP or needs a referral in one of these domains. However, you should see ratings on the developmental checklist for all indicators, including these two domains. Once you log into WSO, this is the home screen you will see. We will spend just a minute navigating the administrator side of the WSO site. You will need to select your site from the available drop-down. Note the 3 horizontal bars in the top left corner of the screen. This is your main menu bar. Clicking here will help you navigate throughout the site. The administrator site has 3 main sections you will want to know more about. Manage. This tab allows you to manage students, users, and locations. If you choose students, you can add new students, transfer them between classes or sites, and archive. If you choose users, you can add new and existing teachers and admins to a program or site, transfer between sites, reset passwords, and change email addresses. If you choose locations, you can add new classes to a site or program. The second section is Communicate. From here, you can create alerts that pop up when users log on. You can define type of pop-up and who receives it. Please remember, you should avoid using as email. It is only for important reminders. Last, we have the Reports section. This section will help you find out more information about where teachers are in the WSO process and how students are performing. We will talk more about these a bit later. Additionally, you will note a link for professional development. Here, you can download user guides from Pearson and access an in-depth webinar on the admin interface. Note the blue arrow on the upper right-hand side. This will take you to the teacher side of the system. We'll be switching to that side to screen evidence. Just a note, once you go to this side, anything you change will be saved and visible to your teachers. One way to quickly screen a classroom is to use the observation summary. Once you are on the teacher side of the site, click on Manage Observations and Work Samples button. This will display the evidence summary screen. Click on Summary Chart in the upper right-hand section. Select either period 1 or 2 and it will produce a bar graph. This graph gives you an overview of evidence linked to indicators for children in the chosen classroom. This is a quick look at the progress of the class and will help you in deciding which children to screen further. Once you determine an individual child to review, go back to the main screen by clicking Work Sampling System at the top of the screen. From here, once again, choose Manage Observations/Work Samples. Select the classroom and select Filter by Student. This will produce a drop-down list of students in that classroom. Select the student you want to review. Once selected, you will see only the evidence for that particular child. Everyone else's evidence is now hidden. Click the title to view a specific piece of evidence. Once you open the piece of evidence, you can read the description the teacher included. Pay particular attention to the box where linked indicators are included. Now that you have screened your classroom, it's time to verify that all children have a developmental checklist created. There are a couple of ways you can do this. We'll start back on the administrator side of the system. Click on Manage Reports and then select Pending Checklist. Select the period you want to view. It will generate a report similar to this if you have checklist pending. When we look at this report for this particular class, we can note that there are checklists that have yet to be created. This is a good example of a time you may want to create an alert. Another way to get a quick look at the checklist status is to view the dashboard. From the Administrator homepage, click View Dashboard. Select the period and a pie chart will be generated. This shows the number of preliminary checklists, finalized checklists, and checklists not started. Teachers are required to print the developmental checklists at the end of Period 2. These should be kept on file for 3 years. The checklist is not shared with parents. The information is used to help teachers plan, summarize the children's progress, and convey that progress on the narrative summary report. Next, we want to look at the process teachers go through to make ratings for the developmental checklist. You will need to switch back to the teacher side of the system and choose a classroom. From this screen, select Manage Checklists. This brings us to the checklist summary screen for the classroom. Let's look at Alex. Note he is currently at 100% for all areas. To view the details for Alex, click where it says 100% complete. We now see the summary screen for Alex. Both periods are present. We will look at Period 1. The black cog will allow you to clear a checklist of all ratings or delete the checklist completely. The green progress bar will fill as you make more ratings. The Flag as Final button should only be clicked at the end of the rating period when all ratings have been made. The numbers such as 12/12 indicates the number of indicators in the domain and the number that have been rated. Click on the numbers for the domain you wish to rate. Here you can see Alex's mathematical thinking checklist. Let's look at the first indicator. Note the guidelines column. When making checklist ratings, teachers are encouraged to click here to open the guidelines and review the rationale and video. They also should open the evidence and review what they have entered online. Teachers should consider how well the student performs in class and make a rating. Notice the comments section at the bottom. As teachers make ratings, they should write anything here that they may want to include on the student's narrative summary report. It may be a quote, the guideline text, or something else. Once they click Save, the comments are available to use on the narrative summary. Once you have reviewed ratings for a particular domain, you can navigate through more ratings from this screen. The Previous and Next buttons will help you navigate between domains for the selected child. Next will go to Scientific Thinking, and Previous will go backwards to Language and Literacy. The student's name is a drop-down menu where you can choose another student. The check mark will take you backwards to the summary screen for Alex. From this screen, teachers can flag a checklist as final. Remember, a checklist should not be flagged as final until the end of the rating period. If you click the check mark again, WSO will return you to the summary screen for all developmental checklists. During weeks 12 and 13 on the IQ Guide, you return to screening classes and reviewing portfolios to monitor that teachers are continuing to enter evidence and linking to indicators. That brings us to the last section of the IQ Guide. At the end of the rating period, weeks 17 and 18, you should review the narrative summary reports and ensure ratings are complete and finalized. You may already be familiar with the narrative summary. It's the report used to encapsulate what the teacher knows about the individual child and in a narrative format describes the strengths of the child as well as any areas of improvement in all 7 domains based on the assessment information collected. This report is the information shared with parents during the 2 conference periods. At the conference, the parent or guardian signs the narrative summary and receives a copy. a signed copy of the narrative summary must be kept on site for 3 years. When reviewing the narrative summary, there is certain information you will look for in the report. It should convey how the child is progressing. The narrative summary should be individualized for the child and show how the child demonstrates knowledge and skills in the classroom. Also, remember the children may have identical ratings, but not the same skills or approaches to learning, meaning that children may be rated similarly, but the skills they demonstrate to get to that rating may be very different. When reviewing the narrative summary report, you want to ensure that teachers are being descriptive of what students know and can do, and that these comments are written in a positive way. To monitor the progress teachers are making in completing the narrative summary, you can view the pending summary report. From the Administrator menu, go to Status Reports and select Pending Summary. The screen will appear for the classroom showing the count of summary reports that have not been started. If teachers have not created the narrative summary and it is the end of the rating period, then it might be wise to send an alert. Let's review 2 other reports that are available to you as administrators: the Location Export Report and Outcomes Report. The Location Export Report is useful for program directors that have more than one site to manage. If you are on the home screen of the administrator side, go to Manage Reports. This report can only be generated at a program level, so you'll notice that a site is not specified. Select Location Export Report and then select your options that you want to include in the report. Once the setup is complete, you will click Export. A message will pop up in the upper right-hand side that the report has been submitted. Once you receive an email that the report is ready, then select Report Status. You can choose to download or review the report, then select Open. This report will open in an Excel spreadsheet. It can be sorted or filtered to find needed information and gives you totals by location. If you go back to the main screen and again select Manage Reports, you can choose the Outcomes Report. You will need to review and select your options. This report allows you to filter by various demographic data. Once you submit, you will again receive a message that the report has been submitted. Once you receive an email that the report is ready, then select Report Status. You can choose to download or view the report. This report generates bar graphs for the specific data you selected. It will be about 13 to 16 pages. This report can be used at the end of the collection period or at year end to help you make comparisons of data. It can be generated at the domain level. It is also available at the functional component or indicator level. We hope that you found this best practices webinar helpful. Thank you for tuning in. If you have questions about using your WSO account or your role in monitoring and supporting teachers throughout each stage of a WSO rating period, please contact your pre-K consultant.